Hey Chaotic Crew, Brian here. I've got another great deck tech for us from Lorwyn Eclipsed. We're going to go into the Fae Flash Flood deck, dealing with elves and fairies. But first, I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Mana Pool. It's a fast-growing marketplace for Magic the Gathering that makes buying and selling cards easy. Their optimizer helps you get the best value in buying cards, and the team is focused on making it a great experience for buyers and sellers alike. Thanks to Mana Pool for helping the channel out. Make sure to check out their affiliate link in the description below. But as we dive into this deck, one of the most hyped commanders of the Lorwyn set is Maralen, Fae Ascendant. And in a set that's filled with kindred synergies, I really love when they, add a little twist that isn't just so one note, like you just want to play a bunch of one kind of card. Maralen does that by adding a second kindred type. Maralen is an elf fairy, has flying, and it is a 4/5, and whenever Maralen or another elf or fairy you control enters, you exile the top 2 cards of target opponent's library. Once each turn, you may cast a spell with mana value less than or equal to the number of elves and fairies you control from among cards exiled with Maralen this turn without paying its mana cost. So this is really, really good. Once each turn, so not just on your turn, once each turn, you can cast spells equal to the number of, elves or fairies, elves and fairies, added together that you have. So it's kind of elf ball plus blue, and the fairy shenanigans of casting stuff on your opponent's turn work really well here too. You could go just full-on elves. You could just go full-on fairies. I'm actually going to do a combination of both here. You could also do changelings if you really wanted to, get extra value there. But there are a couple of those here, but we're really focusing on the joining of 2 kindred types. So first off, the creatures. It's a very creature-heavy deck as you want a lot of elves and fairies on the battlefield. Layla Cunning Conqueror is really great, right from the second Eldraine set. Flying 2/4, whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, you make a 1/1 black fairy rogue creature with flying. So each fairy that you're going to get is going to mill someone else for 2, and then you can potentially cast that for free. And if you cast that for free on another opponent's turn, you can really just keep going and going and going. It's really strong in the deck, and then you can also go to your opponent's creatures, which is also pretty strong. Arbor Elf, fantastic way to ramp, and in fact, if we're just going to go over it, we're running Elvish Mystic, Elves of Deep Shadow, Llanowar Elves. Those are the main ones. We also have Bloom Tinder over here to give us some mana. It's an elf druid, and Maraleaf Pixie is a fairy that adds us mana, so both are really strong there. Love the creature mana dork package. Archmage of Echoes, 5 mana for a 4/4 flying ward 2 fairy wizard. Whenever you cast a fairy or wizard permanent spell, you copy it. So really great here for getting your commander, having another ETB trigger on itself or on other fairies that enter. So really good there. Now, not as strong in a straight fairy deck because not all your cards are fairies, but really good nevertheless. Beast Whisperer is fantastic elf. Whenever we're casting creatures, we're drawing cards. So we're casting lots of creatures in this deck, whether it's ours or our opponents, and we're going to draw cards. Blightwing Bandit, pretty great here. Casting our first spell during each opponent's turn lets us look at the top card of that player's library, exile it face down. We can cast it as long as it's exiled, and mana of any type can be spent to cast it. So it's essentially a backup of our Maralen to an extent, but it's focusing more on the casting a spell during our opponent's turn. So it can get a little confusing, but if you are on top of it, shouldn't be a big deal. Brazen Borrower is really great. It is removal, right? Or I guess tempo, returning a permanent opponent controls to its hand. And then it also is a fairy that is a 3/1 flyer that has flash, so you cast her on your opponent's turn, mill them for 2, potentially cast another spell. Just really strong in the deck overall. Chopping Changeling, fantastic card here. It is, whenever it enters, destroy 1 target artifact or enchantment, and it is Changeling, so it's both an elf and a fairy, so it will count as both an elf and a fairy for the mana value, but it only counts as 1 for the milling, so just to keep that in mind. Cloud of Fairies has, when it enters the battlefield, untap up to 2 lands, and cycling 2, so you could cycle this with a graveyard. This is more so, you can play this, mill someone for 2, untap 2 lands, maybe play another fairy. mill summon for 2 more, so it just gives you more bodies in the battlefield, lets you cast more spells in a turn. And if you can give it flash for whatever reason, then that's also really good. Displacer Kittens, also fantastic. If you can cast one of your opponent's non-creatures, or maybe one of your own non-creatures, this can keep blinking your commander and other elves and fairies you have. Just a really great card to have in the deck overall. We talked about these 2 mana dorks here. Fairy Blade Crafter is really great. It's getting +1/+1 encounters when one or more fairies deal combat damage to a player we control. And then when Fairy Blade Crafter dies, each opponent loses X life and we gain X life, where X is its power. So, going to be putting in damage with our commander, with other fairies that we make, right? And so this is just a good one to have that can gain us some life. Fairy Mastermind to draw us some cards as our opponent draws cards, really great there. Glen Alindra Archmage counters some non-creature spells, has Persist, so when you sacrifice it, it's going to re-enter. So double triggers on your commander, so really great there. Probably the best card of the deck, High Fate Trickster, is a fairy that gives all of our other spells flash, so really strong there. You know, going to make it so that we can cast this Cloud of Fairies on our opponent's turn, or potentially any of our other opponent's stuff, or anything else that may not have flash. Callan Inquisitive Prodigy is really great. Semi-ramp, right? You play an additional land, but you no longer have that land in your hand, so you have to draw more lands, right? But pretty solid there to help get our commander out earlier. And then you can destroy artifacts with Callan, which is great as a fairy, and potentially draw cards if you destroy your own clue token, so neat there. Malleable Imposter, you know, is a... That's not Malleable Imposter. There you go. Fairy Shapeshifter. It's a flash copy creature, enters a battlefield, except it's also a fairy shapeshifter, so being a fairy is really helpful there. Obira, Dreaming Duelist, is going to be burning her opponents for each fairy that enters. And then we've got Rashmi, Eternity's Crafter, to get us more value on the spells we're casting, either whether they're from us or from our opponents. Reclamation Shade is a great elf to destroy another artifact or enchantment. Scion of Una gives our other fairies, you know, Shroud and +1/+1. Selfless Safe Right. Hey, I cannot speak. Selfless Safe Right. 4/2 Elf Warrior. Flash and Convoke. When it enters, choose a creature type. Other permanents you control of that type gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Spellstutter Sprite can counter spells. Talion the Kindly Lord draws us cards. Voracious Tome Skinner can also draw us cards. So all really good there. So it's really, I said it was a mix of both. And I'm not wrong, right? But most of the elves that we're playing are just mana dorks, right? They're helping get us to the elves. I'd say the only real elf cards here are Selfless Safe Right and Rashmi. Rashmi just works really well with what we're wanting to do of casting our opponent's cards. And then Selfless Safe Right also can protect all of our fairies. So really strong card here, can get convoked out, so love that. And we've got some more synergies down the line as well, but right now sorceries, a lot of it's going to be ramp, right? We have Cultivate, Farseek, Kodama's Reach, Nature's Lore, Rampant Grove, Shared Roots, 3 visits, all to get the right mana we need. Raise the Palisade, right? I'm going to returning all non-fairies to their opponent's hands. Neoform is really great if we can cast an opponent's spell and then maybe Neoform out into Talion or into another one of our 4-drops. Displacer Kitten's really good. Not bad to have that. And then Toxic Deluge is a removal spell as well, or board wipe, is always really good. Instance, Offer You Can't Refuse, Arcane Denial are 2 good counters. Glen Alindra's Answer is also great. It counters all spells on the stack and all abilities, and you get a 1/1 fairy with flying for each spell and ability countered this way. So you're probably getting 1, but maybe 2. Negate is also fantastic, and those are the kind of the counters we're running in the deck. But Heroic Intervention kind of acts as a protection spell. We have other cards like Essence Flux, Ghostly Flicker to blink our commander, right? And make it so that it's protection, but it's also going to be re-entering the battlefield. For removal, we've got Assassin's Trophy, Beast Within, and Tear Asunder. And then Feybloom Trick is an instant speed, create 2 fairies, which is great. And then Galadream Ambush is 4 mana, and it makes X woman green elves, where X is the number of attacking creatures. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by non-elf creatures. So you can maybe kill 1 or 2 creatures with this, but you're getting a lot of your end of the battlefield triggers with your commander, so really strong there. And then artifacts, you know, we're running Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone to help with that ramp package. Biden of Thassa is great. Whenever a creature we control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. I like having Birthing Pod in here. This isn't really a Birthing Pod combo heavy deck, but you can get to some of your, you know, hey, you know, sacrifice this Cloud of Fairies to get a 3-drop, and then sacrifice a 3-drop to get a 4-drop. The highest mana value creature we have is Archmage of Echoes, so you could potentially even get to the 5-drop, but typically we're maybe even sacrificing the tokens to get an elf, and then maybe sacrificing the letter elves to get a Theory Mastermind or whatever, right? There's not exactly the cards you'd probably be going for, but definitely, you know, you're getting multiple into the battlefields with your commander, so it's kind of important. Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots is protection. Herald's Horn as semi-card draw, plus also reduction on your commander. And then I talked about Biden of Thassa, but good there. And here's where a lot of synergy also comes in. Utopia Sprawl and Fertile Ground as ramp pieces. Guardian Project is card draw. We're running Leyline of Anticipation to cast spells with flash. And then Feywild Visitor. You know, commander creatures we own have whenever one or more non-token creatures we control do combat damage to a player. Make a 1/1 blue fairy dragon with flying. So this is a fairy, so it'll trigger our commander. And then we also have Cryptolith Right to make creatures we control have tapped to add mana of any color. Then Black Market Connections to give us shapeshifters, changelings, and whatnot. I would say this is a really strong deck, right? We're going to be doing a lot, casting all of our opponent's spells. The thing is, we don't really have any big bombs, and you might be wondering why aren't there any big bombs in here? You could definitely do that. You could take out Neoform and Birthing Pod and put in like 2 7-drop cards that are like game changers for the deck, right? But we're also going to be casting our opponent's spells. You forget. We're stealing a lot of our opponent's stuff and being able to cast a lot of their stuff for free. So we're actually going to be in a really great spot here, just having a pretty low to the ground package. So yeah, pretty neat there. Let's go ahead and do a play test if we can. Okay, yeah, we'll take this one. Draw for turn and play this Rejuvenating Springs. And we will go to turn 2, play Cavern of Souls. We'll call fairies here, but we'll play Bloom Tinder. So next turn, Secluded Glen. We could play this and reveal the Archmage of Echoes or the Voracious, or the Cloud of Fairies is probably the best one, right? And then we could actually tap 2, Cloud of Fairies, untap these 2. Now Bloom Tinder taps for 2 mana. And cast an uncounterable Maralen, and Maralen will mill someone for 2, and then we could potentially cast a spell if we mill 1 out with that. So that's really good. And now, you know, assuming no one removes our commander, if someone does, no big deal, right? Wager drew Talion, which is nice. But now we have some protection in our hand, and we're actually, you know, off to a really great start. We play Talion, the Kindly Lord. 2, 3, 4, and we'll choose like 2 or 3, right, and hopefully draw some cards, and now we can do more things, right? So we're actually in a really great spot here, turn 4. Okay, we'll keep this hand, see how it goes. Draw a card. Lightning Greaves are not bad. We'll play this Command Tower, Elves of Deep Shadow. Next turn we'll play Morphic Pool, and we'll do the Farseek, and we'll grab the Zagoth Triome. Alright. Turn 3, once again we can cast our commander. This is great about running a ton of ramp pieces in here. Casting the commander is nice, and you could wait a turn to play Lightning Greaves, and maybe like spend this time to you can only do Fertile Ground and Lightning Greaves. You could do Fertile Ground into Kellen or Layla, and then next turn play Maralen with Excellence Flux open. It's not terrible, not amazing. I'd rather just get our commander out. If someone kills it, you know, we can ramp out into it later. But yeah, we'll lose life for that. Maybe we'll be able to play something of our opponents. 5, 6 mana. Yeah, now we can play Kellen. I'd probably do make the clue so we can draw a card off of this. And then play a Layla and then have mana open for Essence Flux. It's a great idea, and obviously milling our opponents. We're doing pretty well there. Yeah. Actually, we wouldn't have mana for Essence Flux, but Fertile Ground into a Layla and to have mana for Essence Flux. That's how that would work. But yeah, really great deck here. Let me know what you would take out. Let me know what you'd put in. And what are some good bombs to add? That's a good question. I hope you enjoyed the deck tech. We got some more fun deck techs coming up. Make sure to like the channel. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed the content. Subscribe to the channel and also become a channel member for extra entries into our future giveaways. So keep in the loop for that. But otherwise, I'll be back next week with a new deck tech. Have a good one. Bye.